So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the second CIONET Australia web conference. This one kindly sponsored by UiPath. We're going to be looking at remobilisation, strategies, thoughts, challenges that we all kind of foresee. We're going to have Stuart Freer, the Chief Digital and Data Officer of MECCA Brands, Sami Yalavac, CIO of BUPA Australia and New Zealand, and Andrew Phillips, the MD and VP of UiPath for ANZ. My name is Alistair Putherer. I'm the Managing Partner of CIONET in Australia, along with my colleague Peter Orlowski. CIONET, for those of you who don't know, have been on the go for around 15 years, starting in Belgium. We now have chapters across most European countries and the majority of Latin America. We have chapters starting shortly, hopefully this year, in the US, in the Middle East, and in Asia. CIONET is effectively a global community for technology and digital leaders like yourselves, provides an online virtual platform to connect, share stories, ask questions, get help, learn, and basically just connect with each other in a safe, secure platform, a bit like a LinkedIn with a nicely curated membership. We're going to firstly introduce each of the speakers today, but I'm just going to run through some house rules. If we can just pop that slide up. So I would ask you all to keep your video on at all times. If you can change the name on your screen just to show your first name and your company. You will all be muted throughout the first half of the conference, and we will unmute you when we get to the Q&A session. There is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. You are very welcome, and we encourage you to ask any questions through that chat function. You can chat to everybody, or you can ask questions and get in touch with anybody else privately that you see here connected. If you switch from speaker view to gallery view, you will have a nice clear picture of everybody who is currently in attendance. Just to make you aware, we are live streaming and recording the conference. The Q&A session at the end will not be, so any questions, anything that you raise during that section is kept just within this group. We will also be launching a number of polls during the conference. So look, again, your participation in answering those is encouraged. This allows us to get a good feel for a general response to each of those questions. So again, please keep yourself on mute for the first half as we hear from our guest speakers. We then encourage you to interact in the second Q&A section. Any questions, put them through the chat and we will kick off shortly. So just while we wait for a few more people to join, the topic today is obviously remobilisation strategies and productivity through use of automation and digitisation. We're trying to become more efficient at everything we do. There are a lot of different conversations going on at the moment about how we bring people back to work. We're going to get the perspective from 3 technology leaders on what their kind of plans are to bring staff back into work. And we're going to have a discussion around everybody else's kind of thoughts around that. It's a great turnout we have. We have around 26 participants that I can see at the moment. So hopefully you all heard the introduction piece. If we can just all keep ourselves muted for the time being, we will have a Q&A session the end of the speeches. If you have any questions, please do pass them through on the chat facility. Look, you're not here to listen to me, so I'll quickly introduce our three speakers. We have Stuart Freer from MECCA Brands, we have Sami Yalavac from BUPA, and we have Andrew Phillips from UiPath. So I'll maybe start with you, Stuart, if you would unmute and just briefly introduce yourself, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for having me first of all, and it's good to be here. Yeah, so Stuart Freer, Chief Digital and Data Officer for MECCA Brands, covering a number of different areas in the business. Currently, I've been there 2.5 years, 22 years in technology. As you can see, I'm as old as I look, and 16 of those years have been in retail, with a smaller portion in the education sector. And like all businesses at the moment, we're still doing a heavy transformation agenda, but we don't call it that. We're dealing with rapid growth, as MECCA is, whilst trying to manage through the crisis that we're dealing with. So lots of thoughts on that. Some mistakes we've made, some things I think we've done quite well, but I'm pretty sure we can talk about that in a few minutes.
Great, thank you. Sami, if you would like to just introduce yourself to everybody, thank you.
Sure, thank you very much, Alastair, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm the CIO for BUPA businesses in Australia and New Zealand region. It's a portfolio of businesses mainly focused on the health and care. The health insurance is probably the most known one in Australia. We also have the largest aged care in Australia and the largest in New Zealand. And we also have a portfolio of services called health services, close to 250 dental clinics, around 50 optical stores with audiology tests. We also do health checks on behalf of immigration department. So anyone applying visa to come and live in Australia, we do the health checks on behalf of the government. We also looking after all Army, Navy, our defense force and their family members from the health perspective. So we have 22,000 people in this region under 7 different businesses. So very different work requirements, very different kind of engagements, retail versus office and the clinic kind of workplace. And I look after all these businesses' technology needs, starting from strategy through the delivery. So myself with BUPA, 14 and a bit years. Before that, I'm originally from Turkey, so I work in Turkey. A little bit in Germany, Russia, many different industries. So over 30 years, I'm in the game. That's it, Alastair.
Thank you, Sami. Really interesting to hear. Andrew, if you could briefly introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are and what you do, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Andrew Phillips. I'm the Managing Director for UiPath for Australia and New Zealand. If you haven't heard of UiPath before, don't worry too much. Before I joined the company, I hadn't heard of them either. It's a relatively new area of IT called robotic process automation. Basically, software robots that live on your servers and or laptops and take care of the boring, mundane and monotonous tasks that your people are doing, that really the bots should be doing to free people up to not be robots themselves. So I've been in the IT industry for 22 years. My previous job to this was as a country manager at Amazon Web Services. And I joined that company in 2012, right when they were getting started in automation. If you think the cloud computing really started to take off, you wait to see what's happening with automation, because that's just at the start of what's going to be a fairly rocket ship of a ride. And I'd like to thank Sami as well for being one of our very good customers.
Yeah, very happy with the product. I can confirm that, Andrew.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, guys. So today, look, we're going to be getting the thoughts from Stuart, Sami and Andrew around what their strategy to try and remobilise their workforce is. You know, this is going to cover things like social distancing, office space requirements, new ways of leading and managing, new ways of working, and what technology can offer us at this time to make things easier. I will start with Stuart, if you want to maybe just give us a brief overview of how COVID-19 has affected your business, and what you think you're going to be doing in order to bring everybody back into the office, or what the new mode of work will look like for you guys. That would be great.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, like a number of people here, we've been dealing with this for, I would say now, probably close to 12 weeks, but realistically working from home or some sort of alternating pattern for about 8 of those. And where it's really started with MECCA was we started to see the changing customer sort of behaviour, the government sentiment, the government guidelines around, you know, what you could and couldn't do. And it was really clear for us as a business that we didn't think that we could really stay open in the way that we were, or operate our offices for our team members without putting them at risk. So we made that choice to move to some A/B teams, which started off with, you know, groups of people based on skill groups, particularly when you're looking at technology. You know, you've got to get a balance of skills across the business, working from the office, working from home. That also included some temperature scanning. So, you know, touchless scanning of people's temperatures over 37.3 or 4.4, I forget which one it was, at the door, logs of people, where they're sitting, and then medical grade deep cleaning of the offices. You know, we were taking advice from very, very senior people within the health advisory sector, and then obviously through the retail groups. Joe Horgan, our founder and owner, and co-CEO, I might add, was then talking to you know, different groups to understand you know, what people were doing, and also what was the right approach. We then got to a point where we then made the really tough choice to close all of our stores. So that's 110 stores across Australia and New Zealand. That began with New Zealand shutting down because they went to a higher stage lockdown before Australia, and obviously Australia sort of state by state rules varied. That started with the offices, with the stores, then the customer fulfillment centre, which then led to us having to switch all of our fulfillment off in New Zealand and switch it on overnight in Australia, which was no small feat. Then you start to think through all the detail of, well, if we're now going to be having to deal with 2 businesses coming out of one warehouse, how do we look after our warehouse teams? So socially distancing in a 15,000 square metre warehouse is harder than you might think, even though it's a big facility, because you've got people picking, people replanning, doing inbound, you've got supervision, you've then got toilets, you've got break rooms, and you've got shift changeover where everybody passes each other. So we've had to implement some very, very stringent rules, temperature checks, again, new porter cabins to have people separate breaks, separate groups, separate squads. And that has literally rippled through the whole business. We then moved very quickly away from A/B teams to everybody at home, bar a few people like myself and the leadership team that were going in, so that we could meet via video conference inside the building. So we were almost socially distanced. It was almost like being in sort of social isolation inside the building to try and maintain that. And that's really where, you know, we've gone to, and how we're still operating now. We are reopening stores. We've got 41 open at the moment. We've got 27 opening tomorrow. So we'll be, you know, up in the high 70s, and then a few more next week to get us to sort of mid 80s, and then just gradually phasing those through. So we'll be largely back to a normal business in terms of physical numbers. But then you've got to meet the regulations and the standards around the sort of 4 square meters per person. So you start thinking through, what does that mean for your store space, operating space at the floor, less of your gondolas, your shelving, your racking, your POS counters, and what can you really do to look after our team members first, and then secondly, our customers. And I don't think that's any different to anybody that has any public spaces in their business, or any even private spaces where they've got team members congregated. having to also remind team members that if they do come in, that they still have to distance themselves. They still have to if they're going for a coffee, you know, try and maintain some sort of space. And it's such an alien world for those people to be in. So we've you know, I think we've done a lot. We've learned a lot, but there's a lot of things that you know, I hear from other people that we've picked up their thoughts and we've shared those ideas. And I think what I've seen is huge amounts of collaboration across the business areas, particularly retailers that have, you know, taken away almost the competitive lens and just focused on how do we come out of this together.
Okay. So one of the first polls that we put out is around maybe not mandating the use of the COVID Safe app, but obviously, you know, encouraging your staff to do that. Is that something that you've thought about? Face masks, gloves, the app?
Yeah. So we're a high services business. So when we first shut down our makeup and beauty services, that was the first thing that came out of our portfolio, because, you know, we do thousands and thousands of beauty appointments a week across our stores, which involve skincare, makeup, and other services. So straight away we stopped those to protect everybody. Our stores have been using masks, particularly where they're doing the scanning at the entrance. We've even got stores, I believe 8 stores in New Zealand straight away, where we're trialing the full face masks. And that's right, for a number of reasons, because to enforce that on team members is probably not the right thing to do, because you've got to make sure they feel comfortable and they're okay with that. But we've also got obviously all the hand sterilisation units in those sites, plus full medical grade cleaning, and, you know, counting people in and out of the stores, plus the queuing structures. The COVID Safe app, we haven't mandated, but we have emailed all of our team members and asked them to install it. We've also been using Stream via Teams, where we've done almost every day up until this month, where we've gone to every other day updates to our team members, whether it be state of business, state of COVID, JobKeeper, how we're going to open, how we're going to protect, but really trying to just keep the communications open for a business that's normally very collaborative, you know, large stand-ups on a Monday morning to introduce team members, talk about sales and normal customer empathy, to then doing it virtually. So we've had to change what we do and use those tools to make sure that we're, one, looking after team members and customers, but also just let them know the things that are in place for them.
Yeah, okay. Technology, how do you think there'll be changes to what you do and how you do it when you return?
Yeah, so I mean, again, let's just talk to the beauty services first of all. So how do you provide a service to somebody that you would normally have them sitting in a chair? You might be doing a facial, you might be doing, it could be brows, it could be makeup because she's going to the races, or just on a night out with her partner. The reality is you can't. So we pivoted very, very early as a business, and this was, you know, it's something we were kind of exploring and testing, but we hadn't made a commercial choice on the tool as yet. We have now, but I can't really share. But what we did was we used our regular website, mecca.com.au, with booking services that we normally provide. And we asked the customers to provide their phone number, and we did a FaceTime virtual service. So instead of that person having that makeup applied to them, they were learning how to do that and learning those different techniques from our in-store makeup artists. So it kind of lends itself to the give a man a fish and he'll eat well, you know, teach a man to fish and he'll do it for the rest of their life. It kind of works in that way. Hopefully that doesn't bite us back in the future, because now we've created all these experts. But we found that to be really complementary and has driven a continued connection with our customers. And the response has been, oh, we love it, it's fantastic. You know, I was putting my makeup on in the morning, I'm doing a FaceTime, and someone's making me look great for my Zoom session.
Maybe I'll need to get involved in that, I think. Look, great, thank you very much. That's great to hear. Sami, would be good to hear what, you know, the impact has been on BUPA and what your sort of remobilisation plans are as well.
Sure. So when the situation started emerging, because of we already utilizing working remotely many years, we encourage our people to start working from home. as well as start assessing who doesn't have that capability, which never work from home, maybe fixed desktops, that kind of workforce, as well as some of the staff has to be on site, like a dental clinics, your dentist serving on the site, your aged care business. So our initial focus was as fast as moving everyone to home as the situation raised, and probably in 2 weeks' time, we were able to pretty much anybody can work from home. So all the head office staff, all the kind of back-end staff, even for dental clinics, there's a head office to supporting them, or aged care business has a back-end supporting staff. So everyone was able to work from home. Some of them just moving the devices, lift and shift. Majority of them just has the flexible devices, laptops, desktops, iPads, etc. So that happened. And then we follow the government's sort of rules and the restrictions. As those restrictions came, we start shutting down some other business lines. So we shut down all the dental clinics a couple of weeks ago based on the rules. We shut down majority of the optical stores. We only keep open limited number of them to serve the defense force as their needs is going on. We also shut down all our retail centers for the health insurance businesses. A couple of interesting things happened during that time. Our contact center is working in our head office, and it's one of the key deliverables. This is how your customers reach out to you, and they never work remotely. So our teams work with business, and in 2 weeks' time, we were able to enable the whole contact center people, over 600 people, able to work from home with all the requirements, like PCI requirements, call recording, etc. In normal circumstances, that kind of move will be a minimum 6 months, 8 months project. Whereas when you have to do it and things turn to a mission, and you get rid of all the unnecessary governance, but still make the risk calls and still make the decisions as you go, and also empowering your people, we see that how much actually innovation comes and how much agility comes. And in 2 weeks' time, we were able to achieve that, which was good. We have also a workforce, unfortunately, never ever able to work remotely, like our aged care. We have the residents. You have to look after them in your villages, in your aged care homes. But we implemented lots of extra hygiene, masks, and many other like distancing, etc. kind of controls. And sadly, eventually had to restrict the visits to aged care homes. So it was a bit sad period. Families and the residents cannot see each other. But during this period, we delivered a significant number of mobile devices, tablets, iPads, and enabled the video conferencing. So they were doing their daily calls with the residents' families, seeing each other, talking each other, which is very well received and appreciated. So based on these changes, a couple of thousand people, probably the last 2 months now working from home, and others just serving on the aged care homes. As you said, now time to, based on the government's easiness of these restrictions, considering returning back, so remobilizing the workforce. So we have a strategy evolving, and based on the strategy, we have some guidelines. Obviously, the key guideline for us is a part of our mission, as well as being a health and care organization, maintaining our people's well-being and safety. And any decisions will be like values and culture driven. So the engagement, so keep informing them in terms of the decisions, including decisions we are making. For instance, we are doing ongoing surveys, and we just check them, how they feel about initially working from home, the ergonomics, and we supply lots of devices like the desk can go on up and down, ergonomics chairs, second sort of monitors. And now we are checking with them how they feel about return back to office, as well as assessing the situation. Do they have to return back to office? Is the way of working remotely is impacting the customer service? If it's not impacting the customer service, we are not definitely rushing, as well as how they feel about it, and can they able to return back to office as well. And interesting restrictions, probably you'll ask, and I'll touch about the measures we are doing in the office. But interestingly, the public transport and the lifts are the biggest risk highlighted. So we are taking lots of measures around that, Alastair.
Okay, great. So have you noticed a change in people's efficiency? Because there's I've heard a lot of people talk about being able to get more work done from working from home. I presume these people don't have homeschooling to be contending with as well. But there's certainly a cohort of people who are very comfortable working at home, less distractions. Have you had that message relayed to you?
Yep. Look, obviously it's a mixed bag, but I would say majority of the people felt this much more efficient. Obviously, each individual has its own circumstances, maybe like a young family at home, maybe the home is not big enough from the noise and extra study, etc. So other than these restrictions, people find it much more efficient, and people spending much more time in front of their computers, which we don't want. But this is one of the outcomes. You think that you will save time from the travel, etc. Unfortunately, this wasn't the situation. People end up working more. We had some ergonomics issues because not everyone probably careful enough how they work, how they sit, as well as not going out doing exercise. So there were some downsides of it. So we are supplying a lot of advice and some free services, some external free services, mindfulness, eating, dietary, exercise, some paid services, supplying our staff. But overall, people believe this is much more productive. It almost gives you freedom. You can access to anyone in front of your computer, anyone accessible through the like Skype, Teams, that kind of Office 365, and many other features they can have. It was also, Alastair, an equalizer. Like we have 13 different locations, like the technology teams work. And I always try to connect with people, but I realized that actually I'm much more connected to people around me in Melbourne, but not enough connection. And this situation suddenly put me in a cool position to everyone. So equally distant and equally close enough to everybody, which really forcing you to think about that, how you'll engage your employees as well as your colleagues and your customers, etc., within this new world, which is no longer the same as you physically touching each other. So based on this assessment, Alastair, we are prioritizing if remote working impacting customer service, like dental clinics, etc., we are rushing to return back to the office clinics to start serving customers. Otherwise, we are taking a very measured approach and will definitely not rush, force people to go back to the office because it is working quite well.
Okay, it's great to hear. Andrew, it'd be good to understand how that situation has affected your business, and is that making you rethink how you will re-engage?
Yes. So the offices of UiPath here in Australia, we're in all the major cities, and we're a global organization, global IT organization, headquartered in the US. And so the team that we have here is really a customer-facing or go-to-market style team. And so by their nature, they're on the road a lot or out with customers a lot. And we've only ever really, we've been with WeWork for quite a while, and we've only ever catered for around about half the seats that we have employees. And so, and that's the same globally. So we get about 3,500 people in the company globally. And so we've seen a few really interesting things from this. One is that our team and our company have been very capably and efficiently be able to work from home. That hasn't so much been the challenge for us. And in fact, if anything, it's been quite helpful because travel and expense, our bottom line costs have reduced significantly. And I think a lot of organizations that were agile or that were, have real estate rentals as quite a large portion of their P&L are seeing some efficiencies there. And in fact, we're seeing so much that we're still a private company. We're planning on IPOing in 2021, and the move these days for IPOing is to be profitable before you IPO. And we're expecting that to happen sometime towards the middle or the end of 2021. We're now expecting it to happen this year because our cost base has come down. Now, obviously, that's predicated on the fact that our top line numbers have to remain strong. And one of the benefits of providing solutions that improve productivity or improve efficiency is that you're needed when things are going well, but you're needed even more when things are going bad. And so while we've moved to work from home, a lot of our so there was probably a few weeks where the whole of Australia, maybe the whole of the world, figured out where to put their coffee cup and how to get their lamp working, and where to have different rooms for the kids to do homeschooling from. It wasn't too long before everybody started to get back into the rhythm of doing their job, but from home. And so I definitely changed things in terms of the priorities. So we moved more from focusing on revenue to focusing on activity, because we just knew that we needed to work with our customers, regardless of whether they were able to afford it right now or whether they were going to look at it later. We just went where the requirements were. So we're working with airlines, travel organizations, government organizations, and a number of the supermarkets as well. So it's definitely changed the way that we work, but I think if anything, we're busier now than we were before. It hasn't resulted in immediate revenues right now, but I think that'll come. And in the absence of sitting around doing nothing, this was what we wanted to do. We wanted to help our customers and any other organization be more efficient.
Okay, great. So you touched on potentially reducing office space. That seems to be a kind of common theme. Possibly one more for Stuart and Sami, but the kind of contracts that you have with external suppliers, have you thought around how you will re-engage with those people? Are you going to allow third parties back into the office, or will you take more of a kind of virtual approach to engaging with your third party suppliers?
I think it just depends on what they do. I think is the kind of first answer for me, because where we've got technology providers and suppliers, all of those can come in through remote access, so they can do what we need to do to get to our Amazon cloud. So most of that isn't a problem, and that goes for the same with all of our teams for VPN working, using 365 platform, whether they be customer services or other. So all of that's kind of to the side. I mean, obviously where they need to come in and there's physical access required to the buildings for whatever reason, then clearly we manage that with the same rigor as our team members coming in, with the distancing, the temperature checks, with the log of where they are and where they're working, and we almost put some tape around the area so that they're isolated to do that. Because during this process, we'd actually prior to COVID, would you believe the look of this? We'd ordered a fairly sizable video conference upgrade, but it got delayed, as you'd expect, because everybody started ordering. But it got all installed around the start of April. So we made decisions for those guys to come in, but under strict supervision and separate access. So I think you just have to, the business has to continue, but you've got to find ways to meet the rules, essentially. And that's the same with team members coming back and then handling customers.
Yeah. I also want to add, I think very similar to what Stuart very well articulated, the situation depends on the situation, when the type of the work. But we also have restrictions at our side. We are implementing some social distancing rules and very strict rules in our office. So we will not pass 50% capacity in our office. So there'll be already some restrictions and limitations, as well as like removing furniture in the kitchen areas, limiting face-to-face meetings, so reducing the room capacity, and even like forbidding some meeting rooms usages. So there are lots of restrictions even before a third party come and join you physically. And also the third party's capabilities able to serve us remotely is another factor. But probably for a while, we will definitely not engage anyone physically in our offices, and probably work with them remotely. In terms of contractors, we see them part of our workforce. So whatever we do, our internal people will apply the same rules to them as well.
Okay. So
yeah, I have to say, Sami, the same applies. I mean, luckily we don't, we're two two buildings that have stairs to the first floor. So, you know, we don't have the lift problem that some buildings will have, because, you know, you can imagine lifts are going to be like the equivalent of a Petri dish with people in there. So how you manage distance in the lift, I think, is going to be very interesting. For us, that's not an issue. But again, the alternate desk policy, meeting rooms that would typically hold 12 or 15 have been reduced to 4 people. So you end up with a slightly different problem. But if you've got less people on site and you're down to 40–50% of capacity, the meeting room should actually work. But what we've also found is people are using Teams to have a meeting across the office rather than going to a meeting room to meet. So it has changed the kind of dynamics slightly, albeit slightly interesting when you look at the person and go, "Oh, are you in so-and-so room?" Yeah, I'm just upstairs. It is.
That's actually been one of the differences that we've seen as well. I mean, Australia is a geographically difficult country to serve from many different factors, and so we've had to put people in each of the offices around the place so we can do face-to-face meetings. And what I think will come back after when in a post-COVID, I'm thinking like 1 year, 2 years from now, people won't get on a plane to go and do 1 or 2 meetings. There'll be much more willingness to do remote, 1 or 2 hour sessions, where in the past it would have been highly prioritized to do face-to-face. I think that's going to be one of the lasting changes from this, is that a lot of things, business travel, maybe hotels, maybe desks, will be probably end up being, I don't know, somewhere around 20% less.
Yeah, that's interesting, because, you know, the plane is as worse as the lift, isn't it? So, you know, how to get a distance, you know, miss the middle seats, so therefore it becomes uneconomic. So what do you do to manage that through? But I'm with you. I think there are some people that are chomping at the bit for freedom to get back on planes and travel, because that's in their DNA. There's others that see that as a bit of a chore and don't want to. And I think Teams and similar platforms like Zoom, they are going to be a big contributor to day-to-day life and communication. I don't see them taking over the human touch, because we've got people that when they come in the office, they just seem to decompress and go, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you. So good to grab a coffee and just chat over the desk and have a bit of normality," other than having the 6 kids running around the back of them. So I think it depends on who you are and your family situation.
Do you think there's a downside to that? I think, as you say, humans are, you know, programmed to spend time with other humans. I always found it really strange when people were communicating within the office, you know, not by going over and having a chat with a colleague. You can understand that happening now, but do you see a downside to that? Do you think that has got the potential to hamper innovation if people aren't, you know, bouncing ideas off each other kind of face to face?
I think it's only going to be like 20%. I don't think we're going to go back to, we're going to all work from home. I think it's going to shave maybe 20% off. And I think that perhaps we were doing 20% too much. You know, we were going into the office when we didn't need to. We're taking travel when we didn't need to. I love to travel. And yeah, but I love this. I don't want to get away from my family or anything, but you know, I think everything was so convenient that we were taking advantage of that. And I think this will just pull us back a little bit. And I think it'll be a good thing. I mean, it won't be great for the airlines and the hotels, but I think it's only 20%. My whole team, they'd love to get back to the office. But if we said to them, go back to the office, but only 3 or 4 days a week, I think that would be maybe the best of both worlds.
And to add one, I think if you think about pre-COVID, not necessarily everyone able to see each other every day. Actually, many businesses has multi-locations already. So you always have people somewhere on the VC, maybe majority of them in a room, but not necessarily everyone, which was very inefficient actually, because we didn't sort of improve our muscles how to work remotely well. I think this will really enforce all of us to develop those muscles, and then probably we'll get even a better productivity, either for innovation or doing just business as usual. So I don't think, maybe short term, yes, but I don't think long term it will impact. And I think we all know that it will never be the same. Like many managers was thinking that working from is not great, etc. Now we are seeing that, you know what, if you create the right environment, it is great actually. It's all about how to make it more productive across the board, not only within the organization, but organization to organization. So it will be only better. It's up to probably us and each organization how to create that environment, starting with the physical environment through all the tools and the processes around it, and the managers and leaders thinking beyond that. I want to see someone on his desk, that means he's working, compared to that, this is the outcome I want to get, and how is the best way to get that outcome, or how to engage my people. Like, this situation really forced us to communicate more with people. I never actually felt that much connected with my peers, with my team. Before that, we were not even aware of that, what was missing here. So I'm thinking this will produce lots of positives, but those positives will depend on how successful they are. Like anything else in this one, like Andrew with the UiPath, it's a great tool and we got a lot of benefits of it, but Andrew knows that some companies goes much faster and get a lot of benefit through this automation versus others really struggle. Is the problem automation itself? It's really yours. So I think it's up to us how we will learn quickly and implement those necessary changes, then we all get the benefit.
Yeah. So I guess on that point, Andrew, you guys obviously supply automation process efficiency tools. Are there tools that you had that you've now kind of looking to change, or are you seeing more uptake of those types of products from your customers because of what's happened?
Yes, right at the very start, we saw it really clamped down on the customers that had already started on the robotic process automation journey. They were the ones that really wanted to talk to us and really wanted to scale up. I see a few of them on the, I won't call them out directly, but I see a few of them on the chat here. And they really wanted, they were forced with, you know, either having to hire a whole lot of people, so needing to automate the onboarding process, or, you know, needing to distribute, you know, money or goods or whatever, needed to automate logistics or disbursements. And so that was the initial burst. And then business leaders think 3 to 6 months ahead. And you know, people that are looking at their business now aren't thinking about what's happening right now when we're at home. They're thinking how they come out the other side of it. And you know, the businesses that can recover the quickest are the ones that are going to have a competitive advantage forever. And so those that can get back to work quicker with, you know, maybe they could only afford to, you know, put 1,000 more people on, but they can put 1,000 people and some process automation bots and make it feel like 1,500, and then eventually get back to their pre-COVID size teams, but accelerate that with the use of RPA and other automation tools as well. It's not just RPA. So and they're the ones that now are starting to contact us or starting to return some of the calls that have been made. And so yeah, we are starting to see an uptake of interest in productivity improving tools, but it's not across the board. It's in certain areas.
Okay, Stuart, you mentioned that you had started looking at automating parts of your supply chain and warehouse. You also mentioned that you were now having to supply New Zealand from Australia. Is that,
yeah?
Have you started to do that more? Is that,
yeah? So just
you?
while we entered this COVID period, as you can imagine, the minute you shut your shops for a very loyal customer base, you start seeing them shop online. So your online traffic goes through the roof, and you know the volumes. I can't give you the numbers, but you know, the way I would describe this, I haven't seen comp numbers like that anywhere in my career. So it's crazy the amount of switch that we see from those stores. And the thing is, when you then shut down the only way of getting all the products in that country, we then immediately had to switch it on in Australia. Now, fortunately, there are some levels of, you know, I'd say semi-automation in our warehouse around the technologies. But what it's shown is that as we drive forward and we get to that level of an e-commerce business, not just a stores business, automation is going to be absolutely key to keeping the cost down of that business unit. Clearly not something we can put in quickly during this process, but something that is really kind of key to the future of the business growth. MECCA is a business that has grown, and this is something I can say, it's grown 5x in 5 years. And so with that comes growing pains, with that, becomes some really tough lessons. And, I've kind of often described it to, MECCA is like an A380 with all first class seats. It has, beautiful cabin, the stores, it has great store hosts, the air stewardesses, and great products and services. So, onboard treats and experience. The problem is 3 of the engines are spluttering and 1 of them is running full throttle. And at the same time, the engineers are clambering on the wings, trying to change all the systems out, move them to the cloud and rebuild them, because we're growing at a rate that is about 25 years of a normal retailer. So it's not that people are slow, it's actually people are extremely quick, but it's just that it's accelerating ahead. And then you add on COVID and working from home. If anything, we've seen an acceleration in technology adoption, an acceleration in delivering those things to our business, because all of the debates and the conversation and the thing that we're famous for, which is the collaboration across the business, became a, how do we do this? What's the best way? As opposed to, talking and figuring it out. We just did it and learned from it if it didn't quite work. And so I think it's just, innovation certainly hasn't been stifled by this process in my view. I don't think work from home is the perfect solution either. It's quite painful for a lot of people.
Yeah, look, I think, as a few people have mentioned on the chat, I think it's been able to provide the option when it makes sense for people to work from home. And as Andrew mentioned, maybe 3 days in the office and 2 days at home. And if you can manage that in such a way that you keep numbers down, you can potentially reduce office space. There's savings there that can be made.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to be a commercial real estate landlord coming out of this, and people going, I actually need 25% less space because I'm going to have 1/4 of my workforce working at home. And by the time I factor in meetings and other things, actually I might need 1/3 less. That's a reality that I saw in the UK and the GFC. I could see that coming out of this by the end of the year, because we're going to be like this, I think, social distancing for quite some time to come.
I've had a few conversations with other people who have been able to move sales teams completely remotely. PCAI, DSS solutions are now there that allows you to do that from home, where apparently that was never possible. And solutions were, kind of put together within days. So you now have the ability to have a very remote, dispersed workforce that you can almost switch on and off as you need to. So there are certainly positives that have come out of this.
Lester, I think one very big benefit will be opening for talent. Like currently, we really limit ourselves. Let's say if a specific team, everybody is in Melbourne, we naturally look for someone in Melbourne and very close to the idea of that person can be somewhere else. I think this will really open the door with the full flexibility, much wider to talent pool to reach out. And there was some really good contributions through the chat. I think Jeff mentioned, yes, absolutely. I don't think it will be all working from home remotely or all working from office, but it will be much more mixed for the future. And not only us, but for third parties as well. Maybe some third parties we used to work together, they will say, we're no longer working in the offices, but it's the new way of working. So it will definitely push all of us, the usage of these new technologies, and probably lots of innovation will come through that remote working area. One irony is we worked so hard so many years on the flexible working, the flex desking, and now we've forbidden it in our offices. So we introduced like only 50% can be there, and then rostering teams to be there, who will be there, and lots of cleaning sort of protocols and scattered start time because of the lifts and other things, like some teams start 8, another group 8:15, 9, 10, etc. So lots of different ways people introducing, because no doubt some people will be in the office and has to be in the office, part of their roles.
Yep. So there's lots of opportunity for kind of cost saving, I guess, around reducing office space. Do you think there's going to be additional costs that come with this, or where else are you thinking of investing? Maybe, you know, from a technology perspective, what do you still need to invest in to make this work better if people are going to be spending more time at home? Do you think what we have at the moment through things like Zoom and Teams is sufficient, or are there gaps that you've seen?
Is that to me or Sami?
Sorry, if anybody has an opinion on that. Yep.
Look, I think I would say the majority of the tools we've got at home are actually workable. You know, the VPN gives you full inside access. Teams, you know, allows you to do most things that you want to do. You know, Confluence, Jira, those collaboration-based tools for development and so on. So I think that's all fine. I think actually where the bigger problems have lay is really, and I'm sorry to say this, but down in Australia's NBN network. I sit here on a 100 meg NBN service, and you may have seen a LinkedIn post where I had a little bit of a go at Andy Penn about 5G being rolled out, but your basic customer service principles weren't great. And I've had a response to get it fixed, because we were finding that as the kids were homeschooling, both the wife and I were working, we were losing the NBN 7 times a day. I've ended up buying a 4G modem service as a backup, so the thing fails over between the two. I mean, that shouldn't be, you know, the home solution. I should be able to rely on this product. So I would say most people have struggled with actually bandwidth and connectivity because of the excess load. So if we're moving to a position where this happens, I think our core infrastructure in Australia really needs to support the volumes. And whether it's 4G or 5G, I don't think it matters, because it wasn't necessarily for the full bandwidth I found. It was actually just the number of connections in the local neighbourhood hitting those local exchanges. So I think that's where we need to, you know, have a good look at it.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting if, you know, probably sometime in the future, if people are now considering moving out of the city because they don't have to be close enough to make the commute bearable on a daily basis. If you could live somewhere a bit further away and commute into the city 2 or 3 times a day, what is the impact when you can't get a reasonable connection, you know, 5-10 k's outside of the city? So I think this is something that's, you know, going to need to be addressed at a kind of higher level. But
I'm only down in Brighton in Bayside, and I was just really looking at Jeff's comment about the on with Telstra NBN and the 4G failover. If I turn my screen to the left, you see a 4G Smart Modem 2 from Telstra, which is that backup to the Telstra modem. The 4G never works, Jeff. So I've had to implement my own solution. But yeah, you know, like you say, once you get beyond 10 or 15 k's from the city, connectivity becomes a real problem. You know, if you're in Mount Eliza, for example, I know people who are, you know, really struggling. They're using their 4G most of the time. So that does need to change to support this properly, and hopefully that accelerates it.
Yeah, we have many staff issues and challenges, so we have to deliver lots of dongles, especially the contact center people, like young people, low income, and they don't have a great NBN or whatever the features. So it was a challenge. I think another challenge, Alastair, is onboarding. When you have a new person, not many of us organize well how to onboard and orient that person remotely, rather than physically sitting someone next to someone and take the steps together in a room. This is something we are developing some solutions, as well as ongoing training for the people. I think there are lots of things technology will help us, but also organizations will offer as a service. Probably will come a lot, but these are the areas we're still struggling.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, there was a question.
Sorry.
Yeah, there was a question from Martab from NAB on the chat about you know, traditionally organisations have taken people from the 2 major hubs, Sydney and Melbourne, and you know, would we now be looking to hire talent from outside? I think there's that's one answer. So when we're hiring again and looking at new talent, and I think also it's giving people an option to that existing people, especially young people that might not be able to afford a home in Sydney or Melbourne, or a family that might be living in an apartment, they might be able to buy a place in a regional area, and not too far, Gosford or Newcastle or Wollongong, something that 1 day a week, or a few times they could come down and work in the city if they need to. It's made the option for that a lot easier. We're load balancing some of our technical people across even across to New Zealand. So if we're finding our government person over in New Zealand is quite busy at the moment, and we don't have a lot of technical resources in Wellington. So one of our Queensland technical people, because everything has to be done remotely now, they're zooming in and helping from there. So I think the sales side of things will always be face to face, but that the technical demonstrations and things could be done remotely a lot more easily.
Yeah. Okay. Look, I'm just conscious that we are coming up to 5 to 5, and we are supposed to be wrapping this up at 5. Happy for if people want to continue the conversation on the app. If you haven't downloaded it, I would encourage you to do so. Look, last kind of couple of questions coming in on the chat. Again, looking at people's performance, efficiency, productivity. Have you really got a gauge on how that has increased or decreased across your different businesses, guys? I appreciate we've only been in this for 6 months, so it's probably only going to provide a snapshot. But I guess just to kind of wrap things up, it'd be really great to get an understanding as to whether you think productivity is going to remain. Do you think it's going to get better? Do you think it will get worse?
Alastair, I think it's hard to measure it in a short term. However, the feeling, and we also did surveys with people, with leaders as well as their people, the overall feeling, I don't remember the exact percentage, but probably around 60% of the people thinks productivity has increased. Maybe another 20 says didn't change, and the remaining thinks it's less effective. Yep. But also another insight from the surveys we are doing, there are many people questioning, should we really return back to office? I think this is working quite well for me. I'm happy to work maybe a couple of times a month or a week, come to the office. I want to keep working like that because I'm really, really happy with the current setup. I think there'll be a lot of pressure from employers. Obviously, we have to balance this with the business's needs and what customer service required. But looks like there'll be a lot of pressure from individuals to stay working from home, at least some level of part-time.
Okay, Stuart, Andrew, any final thoughts?
I think it depends on, it really does depend on the area, to be honest. I think a lot of technology people are very used to remote working or working on tools that they can collaborate with, whether it be Jira or Trello or something else. I think there are definitely areas of the business that have struggled. They've had to adapt. Probably our customer services and our finance teams, because they're used to working very closely with people and walking through spreadsheets and data to look at these pieces. But also the customer services has traditionally been inside the building and not remote. So I do think there are pockets of inefficiency. I would absolutely say so. But also through this, the distancing doesn't help your warehouse operations at all. When you have people generally flying past each other on pallet trucks or automated vehicles or whatever. But for a tech group, I think it's definitely had an uplift for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, if I mandated it, it would eventually lead to a decrease in sales. I think there's going to be a large portion of people that want to get back to the office. I think to have it as an optional, I think we will see people use it more because it's set up a little bit more now, and our customers are a bit more willing to take demonstrations or things over the phone, but over the internet. But I think people are currently doing well because they know it's going to end. If people thought that this was going to be the status quo forever, I think a lot of people wouldn't be handling it as well as they are. So I think knowing that we are going to be coming back relatively soon has helped us get through it. But it won't be the same when we do get back, but relatively the same. Yeah,
I think that's the general consensus. When people can see the light at the end of the tunnel, moving through it is so much easier. Look, guys, we're going to run out of time very shortly, and we will be running a short kind of promotional video, give you a bit more information about CIONET immediately after this. Maybe we should set up another conference to kind of continue this conversation. Seems to be a lot of opinions and questions out there. Just firstly, thank you, Stuart, Sami, Andrew, everybody else for attending. Please do watch the remaining video. Any questions, get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Alastair, for the invitation. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
For the last 15 years, I've been on a quest to discover the DNA of the most successful digital leaders in the world. What makes them tick, what's in their minds and in their hearts. We are sharing deep insights from our world-class CIOs so that you get inspired, can learn and reach your full potential as a digital leader. If you are an ambitious technology executive, then I invite you to join CIONET. Join our community so that you too can realize your ambition.
Well done.